Well, hey there, hobby homesteaders. Welcome back to Peaks Peak. Today, we've got an exciting video for you because we are going to pick our corn and freeze our corn on the cob, in the husks, and we're gonna use this bandsaw to help. Stay tuned. All right, well, first I gotta start with picking. So we're gonna start over here in our rough little corn patch that didn't grow very tall, but it's got some decent looking ears on it. So we'll get all these picked and then we'll move over to the good corn patch. To good corn patch, and the good corn patch has had some bugs in it, so I hope we didn't let too many of them ruin, but I think we'll get a lot of good corn out of this. I intended to pick all the corn in the garden tonight, but I picked the spindly corn that we had on the other side, and I picked maybe a third of this plot, and I think I've got plenty to work with here. I don't know how many 1 gallon freezer bags I've got anyway, so this is going to be enough to at least get me a good start on the project. So I'm going to quit on picking for tonight and get down to the business of getting these cut up and ready to go into freezer bags. All right, I gotta get me a good clean rag. Yeah. That ripped my microphone off there. All right, guys, so the way we need to process this corn is we want to cut it off right here where the stalk meets the cob, and then we also want to cut the top off. Now, you might wonder why we're cutting the top off. Let me show you a fine example of why we're cutting the top off. See the top of this? When you open that up, you'll see there are worms. And they always start at the top. So if you cut down past that, you can get rid of the worm and the contamination that goes along with that. So that's how we deal with that quickly and easily without having to shuck all of this corn and cut it off the cob before we freeze it. Now guys, just a quick word of caution if you happen to have a bandsaw and you decide you want to try this. It took massive amounts of cleaning on the saw before I was willing to go ahead and do this. I did a test cut after I did my first cleaning and still didn't feel like it was clean enough. So I ended up taking things apart, spraying it down with cleaner really good, blowing it out, and then using disinfectant on it. So the little bit of disinfectant you saw me spray on the table is just for the final preparations after me handling everything. Now, honestly, I don't figure it's that big of a deal because the food's gonna be cooked before you use it, but the last thing you want is some kind of metal flakes or something in your food. So definitely keep that in mind. But if guys like Stony Ridge can take a knife to the corn on the bucket of their tractor and be clean enough to freeze the corn, then I should be able to get by with this, right? We're gonna make a couple cuts here and show you just how easy this is because it is nice. Now, give you an idea. I mean, we're good and clean. You can tell by looking at the ends of it when you've got all of the worm, anything that the worm has touched has been cut off because you'll have a nice clean end like that. So I've got me a bucket here to throw the scraps in, and we are setting the rest aside to freeze in 1 gallon freezer bags. So let's get to work. Okay, now a little bit on bagging up this corn. I try to get about 5 ears in a bag because that's about how many ears we need for a meal. I like to eat a couple of ears, and some of the kids don't eat corn at all. So the way it all works out is 5 ears of corn works out just about right for us. So I will get them all bagged up just like that. I peel some of the husk off just kind of the outer edge, get rid of all the bugs and everything that's on the outside, leave it down to where it starts to turn that lighter color right there. That's about how I leave them. And you can pop these ears of corn in the microwave, and a few minutes, they're ready to eat. Nice and easy meal, and they will last about 6 months in the freezer like this. This is just kind of an alternative to going through all the work of cutting it off the cob, blanching it, and bagging it up that way. And we actually still have quite a bit that's frozen that way as well. So we're gonna have plenty of options for our corn. Now, I wanted to share with you, this is obviously not an original idea of mine. I actually got this idea from a lady that I go to church with, Janice. I take her some corn sometimes from our garden, and she was telling about me this method of freezing it last year, and I really wanted to try it. So I did a little bit of research, and I actually watched some other videos like Stony Ridge, and there was another person that does some prep this way. So I kind of watched those videos so that I could share some tips with you, some of the things that I learned, so that you would know about this method as well. Maybe you haven't seen those videos, and so I thought I would just pass that along. But I appreciate Janice for sharing with us the idea so that we can try this out for ourselves. And if you happen to be worried about waste, here's where all those cutoffs go. Alfie, what you eating, buddy? Is that the good stuff? Yeah, I thought you'd like that. So we may be cutting off just a little bit of good corn, but it's definitely not going to waste. Alfie loves it. Now, I kind of wanted to share with you a couple of things to look for as you're doing this, because you can kind of determine the health of the corn cob inside the husk without unwrapping it all the way most of the time. So when you cut the ends off and everything looks nice and clean and white and yellow, and you peel the outer layer of husk off and you've got a nice light colored green, you know everything inside there is healthy and moist and ready to roll. I actually pitched one here just a minute ago where, as I was unrolling the husk, I found kind of brown spots on the outside, and when I peel it open and look underneath, I actually found this kind of brown underneath where it's just starting to rot or bugs have been on it or whatever. So you kind of have some clues there so that you know what's good quality. And I just go ahead and pitch the ones that look kind of bad. Now, it's not the end of the world if one happens to make it into the bag and it's not perfect. When you cook it and you open it up, if you find some imperfection, you can cut them off, or if it's too bad, you just throw it away. But most of the time, you get a pretty good idea by what you're looking at here. So look at the ends, peel the outer edge, nice healthy color all the way around. Good to go. Now this one you can kind of see it's not going to be a very good corn cob. You can tell the kernels are a little bit different sizes, and so it's probably going to have some spots where the kernels didn't develop. But you can see, yeah, so when you open that up, you kind of see it's just spotty. So it didn't fully develop. And you can kind of see that by the fact that it wasn't uniform when you cut the ends off. So you got a pretty good idea what's inside just by looking at those little clues there. That would have been a fine ear of corn to go ahead and eat, nothing wrong with it, but no need to save it. We'll feed it to Alfredo. So I'll share with you one that looks really good and healthy. You can see the end of it, just nice and uniform on both ends, and your color looks really good all the way around. So you know you've got a nice ear of corn right there. For the most part, we got really good ears of corn here. Now there were some that I picked that I knew were marginal. They didn't grow very well, you know, kind of in bad places in the garden. They had too much moisture. And I kind of sometimes pick those just to learn more about how things are doing and what they're going to look like inside. Some of them that look like this one had these little brown spots on the end, so I went ahead and opened it up, and you can see it's got some dry spots in the corn right there. This one here, one kernel there looks like there could be a worm on down there, so we'll make another cut. Take about another inch off, and actually what I found was a couple of little bugs there. Now we're good and clean on both ends. Now, I've got a bunch of corn to bag up, and I've got to clean up this saw before my son gets home, because this belongs to my son, and, well, he's probably gonna freak out. I got corn all over his bandsaw. So guys, all total, we bagged up 30 1-gallon bags of ears of corn, each having 5 ears. Now, there were some that we put more in, but the bags hold 5 full ears, so the ears that we put more in were smaller ears. So I'm gonna say 150 ears of corn that we got ready to freeze here. I'm gonna take them over and put them in the freezer and call this job done. I would say the rest of the corn that we harvest, we will either give away to friends and family at church, or we will cut it off the cob and freeze it in bags, or both. But guys, I hope you enjoyed seeing this kind of new technique. At least it was new to me, and I wanted to share it with you. Appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a good day.